September, and I do speak on behalf of the Police Ministry of the South African Police Service. Thank you so much for making time to yet again cover the release, this time of our inaugural quarterly crime statistics that will reflect crimes that were committed or that occurred from the 1st of April 2020 till the end of June 2020. But before we kickstart this program, I would like to just introduce our panel. We do have with us the Minister of Police, General Bheki Cele, and to his right, the Deputy Minister of Police, Police Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Sithole. Thank you so much for honoring us. As I said, we'll then hand over to the Minister of Police to address us on this issue. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lorenzo. The Deputy Minister, Kasim Matale, the National Commissioner of the South African Police, Deputy Commissioners here, Provincial Commissioners, where you are, Divisional Commissioners, Statistician General, Mr. Malulega, the new head of IPIT, Dikeleti Ntlatseng, the Secretary of Police, Rabia Alvin, the CEO of SIRA, Mr. Sam Chauge, officers, and everybody. Good afternoon. True to our promises and in line with fulfilling a cabinet resolution to release the crime stats every quarter, I address the nation to present the crime statistics for the first quarter of 2020-2021 financial year. Allow me to start by recognizing and acknowledging all dedicated officers of the South African Police Service who continue to serve and protect as the country battles the world's fifth largest COVID-19 outbreak. Many of you officers have fulfilled your constitutional obligation in face of adversity and uncertainty. All the officers in blue who have and continue to maintain high policy visibility. I want to commend you for executing your responsibility to serve and protect with excellence. Maintaining high density visibility during the pandemic has come at a high cost. Despite our best efforts to keep the virus at bay by wearing protective equipment, sanitizing our hands, vehicles, and workstations, and by maintaining social distancing while enforcing the law, over 14,000 of our members tested positive COVID-19. Majority of these infections occurred when the officers were on the line of duty. Let me take this opportunity to also extend my heartfelt condolences to the officers in blue who have lost their fight against the deadly pandemic. A total of 163 of them up to date, they've lost their lives and from the virus, while over 9,563 of them have recovered. When COVID-19 reached our shores in March 2020, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation and announced the national lockdown. The country was put under strict orders to stay at home. Businesses, mines, factories, bars, casinos, beauty salons, sporting courts, nightclubs, game parks, hotels, car washes, restaurants, ship-ins and taverns shut down. Churches and schools were not spared either. It was also at that time that members of the South African National Defence Force were deployed in our communities together with the members of the South African Police Service and other law enforcement agencies in ensuring safety of South Africans and adherence to the lockdown regulations in all corners of the country. Together, they managed to rock blocks, stopped and searched vehicles, and maintained law and order whilst ensuring compliance of the new rules. These include operations such as Okamulau, Swara Tsosi, and Buyamteto, and Operation Thunderstorm in Gauteng, Limpopo, and Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga provinces respectively. Operation interventions continued throughout lockdown and have resulted in the confiscation of millions of rand worth of contrabands. They also removed illegal firearms off our streets and recovered stolen property, including stock. These operations played a huge role in clamping down on illegal transportation and distribution of banned substances such as alcohol and cigarettes. They also got in the way of organized crime trying to take advantage of the new way of life. To date, 298,252 people have been arrested and charged with contravention of the Disaster Management Act. 181,579 were released on warning to appear before the court. 28,337 of these arrested were found guilty of violation ranging from liquor gathering, transport business, and cross-border related offences. Unfortunately, most of people arrested will come out with criminal records, and it is not our aim to criminalize South Africans. That is why the Minister of Justice and Correctional Service is looking at this issue. The pandemic certainly didn't change the fact that members of the South African Police Service remained out on the street to enforce the law when the country stayed indoors. Members of the media, unfortunately, criminality didn't take a holiday. This is why officers also continued with investigations, tracking and tracing suspicious activities, clamping down on criminal syndicates, and responding to millions of calls of domestic violence and other distress calls by community members. The first quarter figures that will be presented here today are from the 1st of April 2020 to the 30th of June 2020. This is the same period when the country was under lockdown level 5, 4, and also reflect crime that took place in the first month of lockdown level 3. These statistics show major decrease in all crime categories compared to the same comparative period last year. Indeed, the statistics we will release today paint a never-seen before rosy picture of peaceful South Africa experiencing a crime holiday. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we know that the decreased crime levels were impacted largely by the fact that South Africans heeded the call to stay at home. And it goes without saying that the conditions for crime to thrive were not normal. There were also more boots on the ground to ensure high policy visibility and mass adherence to the Disaster Management Act. While we can't claim easy victories and tell no lies, we acknowledge that the circumstances that led to the declining numbers were distorted. But even if distorted, also show a reduction in crimes committed against women and children during stage 4 and 5 of the lockdown. However, the low numbers of domestic abuse and sexual offences reported cases could have been due to some women not being able to escape their abusers and could not report crimes committed against them. In this regard, the SAPS will continue to monitor the reporting of such cases and verify whether the reduction was as a result of non-reporting due to the lockdown. This will be done by comparing the dates reporting with the dates of which the crime was committed. It is equally important to acknowledge that the unavailability of alcohol also had a role to play. This is evident in the decreased numbers of cases of contact crimes, which plummeted 37.4%. This means there were 53,891 less cases of murder, attempted murder, assault GBH, common robbery, and common assault reported compared to the same period, same period. The drop in crime cases is also demonstrated by a 29.4% decline in contact-related crimes made up of arson and malicious damage to property. During this time, South Africans were also safer in their homes. Burglaries and residential premises dropped by over 30%, while on the other hand, burglary at non-residential premises increased by 9.1%. Worryingly, there has been an increased number of attacks on schools and liquor outlets during this time. 2,692 burglaries were reported at educational premises and 1,249 liquor outlets were targeted. A total of 1,186 suspects have been arrested for these crimes. There's also been a big drop in the number of sexual offenses, recording a 39.7% drop on crimes such as rape and sexual assault. A 40.4% decrease in the number of rape cases were reported during 3 months of lockdown. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, indeed, the first quarter of 2020-2021 period was much safer time to live in the country. All top 30 stations that are reporting high level of assault with intent to cause GBH2 recorded drops in numbers. Common assault numbers declined from April and May while the country was under level 4 and 5. But the gap started to close on the 1st of June when the country was eased into level 3 of the lockdown, which means the cases began to pull up again from level 3. Ladies and gentlemen, this is also the same time when more people returned to work. Last week, I said the quarterly release of these statistics will allow for timeous intervention measures aimed at crime reduction. There are certainly many lessons to be learned from these recent figures as the steps and how we must channel resources where they are. The evidence is clear from these figures that the absence of alcohol does lead on the safer communities. Before I conclude, let me again take the opportunity to commend officers of the SAPS and our armed forces for holding the fort during the rough winds of pandemic storm. While we have a police service that strives for blue excellence, some within our ranks still choose to operate in darkness and criminality. 163 officers were arrested from the start of lockdown from violating the very same lockdown regulations that were meant to enforce. We are also hopeful that the Police Independent Investigation Directorate will bring finality in its investigation into allegations of police brutality, including allegations of death in the hands of the South African Police Service and armed forces. Just this week, 16,000 South African Police Service officers who disgraced the police uniform stood before the magistrate in Gauteng. A 3-year investigation by the Hawk Serious Corruption Investigation and Crime Intelligence saw warrant officers, sergeants, and constables arrested for allegedly stealing millions of rands worth of drugs confiscated from drug mules and other corruption-related offences at the OR Tambo International. In Tshwane, the same Hawks team arrested 11 TMPD officers for alleged corruption by receiving bribes from motorists. Let this be a lesson to all those who join the service with ulterior motive. A place for and the SAPS is not the place for the criminals, and the long arm of the law will catch up with you and show you no mercy. Ladies and gentlemen, having said so, we not yet pleased, but we looks like we are taking direction with one topical area that is happening in South Africa. In the South Coast, we have witnessed some gruesome murder, up to 5 young women. It's quite a mixed age of them. I think they're between 16 and 38. But we are glad to say At least we have 2 people in our hands now that we are questioning. We seem to be very confident that at least one of them will get the proper answers. We'll be going there tomorrow in Mtwalume to enhance the forces on the ground so that we stop this thing. Is a thing that should be stopped and stopped earlier before more and more of our women. 5 is already a big number. Go there and try to stop that it doesn't happen any further. For that, I will invite then General Skukuni to give us his raw figures. Thanks very much. It's still on.
Thank you, Minister, Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, members of the public, media houses. I'll be quickly taking you through the first quarter of the 2020-2021 financial year crime statistics as has been reported and recorded to the South African Police Service. As is the norm, we normally start with the table where we show the 17 community reported crimes for the current quarter. I will only stick to the contact crimes, but as one can see at a glance, all the broad categories of crime have decreased. Your total contact crimes have decreased by 37.4, as the Minister alluded in his opening remarks. Individually, we have murder reducing by 1,932, sexual offences by 4,798, attempted murder reducing by 1,088, assault GBH by 15,361, common assault 10,190, common robbery 6,406, robbery with aggravating circumstances 14,106, and then total contact crimes, as I've already indicated, decreasing by 53,891. All the subcategories of total sexual offences also decreased. Cumulatively, they all decreased by 4,798. I will not go into the individual crimes. Then the subcategories of robbery aggravating, made up of carjacking, has also gone down by 1,873. Robbery at residential premises, 1,208. Robbery at non-residential premises, 1,759 reduction. Cash in transit robberies reduced by 19, and there were no bank robberies, and truck hijacking reduced by 85. The broad category of what is termed contact-related crimes, made up of arson and malicious damage to property, also reduced by 7,976. Then on the next slide, I think the idea here is that when we release the crime statistics, more especially on matters related to the contact crimes, we often hear comments that there were so many people killed per day, which is a misconstruction and misinterpretation of the statistics, because it does not take into consideration the number of days, which is what we had done in this time around. We have provided status A with the contact crime that we have experienced, and they have computed on our behalf using the 2017 mid-year population estimates for the first quarter, and computed for us the contact crimes per 100,000. As a result of that, we had 9.3 for the current quarter, April to June 2021. From last year, we had 9.3 per 100,000 murders. Currently, we have 5.8 per 100,000. The rapes, we had 16.7 per 100,000. Currently, we have 9.8 per 100,000. Attempt 2.4 per 100,000. Currently, 37.2 per 100,000. Common assault, 62.1 per 100,000. Currently, 43.8 per 100,000. Common robbery, 22.1 per 100,000. Currently, we have the broad category of property-related crime. The only crime that has increased within that broad category is the burglary at non-residential premises, whereby the most significant contributor was the increase that had been observed where schools and liquor outlets were burgled. This will be explained in the later slides. The other serious crimes, we have observed a decrease across all the other serious crime categories, a decrease of 38,249 across that broad category, or 35.2. Then in total, the 17 community reported crimes decreased by 135,528. Unfortunately, because there were no people in the streets, so did the retrieval of illegal possession of firearms, drug-related crimes as a result of police action. Now, when we look at the 17 community reported crimes using a trend line, what is worth noting is that at the beginning we had a level 5, that is at the 1st of April. Then now, if you look at the month of April when we were in level 5, you will see that there's a big gap between the graph from last year, or the point from last year, to the point to this year. The reduction there at level 5 was 63,597. At level 4, the two graphs started converging and the decrease became smaller to 52,314. As we moved down to level 3, at that point at the 1st of June, whereby liquor was allowed, then we moved further down and the reduction was only 19,617. Although in the latter 2 weeks of June, liquor was then again banned with immediate effect. Then across all the provinces recorded decreases across the 17 community reported crimes. Then we looked at the selected domestic related crimes, where we looked at murder. We had 112 in the current quarter, whereby 65 were women and 47 were men. That is, if you take it in terms of percentages, there were 58%. Then for rapes, we had 312 women and 10 men. Percentage-wise, it's 97 women and 3% of the men. Then that is the breakdown of all the crimes broken down by gender, sex, male and female, and what has been reported. We only looked at the selected crimes. The rest that had list numbers, we did not include them in this table. Then in terms of contact crimes again, whereby at level 5 the gap is wide, at level 4 it's closing, at level 3 it almost coming closer together and even touching, or in some other crimes the two graphs cross each other, where the blue now becomes on top of the gray one, especially in that week of the 1st of June, where we noticed that especially domestic violence, the two graphs crossed, but then when alcohol was closed again, then the blue graph went down again. Then causative factors, I will not go into all the causative factors, but I will touch on a few. Arguments, again, were the ones that were significant or had the highest numbers. Then we had robberies, that is included 21. Hijacking, we had 28. Rape-related, we had 16. Illicit mining, we had 13. These numbers were derived from a sample of a number of dockets. For murder, we used 2,413 dockets. For attempted murder, we used 1,285. And for assault GBH, we looked at 4,301. And if one takes the total number of murders that have been committed and the sample size, we sampled almost 70 to 80% of the murders that have been recorded in the current quarter. Then on the places of occurrence, again, selecting only a few. Residences of the pen, agricultural land, which I saw in some newspapers was misconstrued to mean farm murders. It was not farm murders. I explained that it meant at the fields, not necessarily farm murders, but farm murders are included in agricultural land. Then liquor outlets, we had 9 murders happening there, 5 attempted murders, and 31 assault GBH. And at educational institutions, we had 4 murders, 1 attempted murder, and 1 assault GBH. Then contact-related crimes that were liquor-related offenses, again using the same sample, we observed that 56 murders were committed where it was indicated that either the perpetrator or the victim has consumed alcohol, and then rapes were 113 where alcohol was involved, assault GBH 284, attempted murder 11. And where the crimes happened at the confirmed liquor outlet, we had 9 murders, 31 assault GBH, 5 attempted murders, and 2 rapes. Then the trend for murder is similar to all the other crimes that we have seen, the graphs coming closer together. And then causative factors for murder broken down by province. Argument and misunderstanding were most prevalent in KZN, where we had 40, and similarly again in the KZN we had, and then in terms of rape related, it was 1 in KZN and 1 in Limpopo. Then there were also 2 murders that were committed as a result of people who intervened when other people were fighting, and they unfortunately ended up being the victim. In the 2018-19, then we had 18 in the 19-20, and then we had 8 in the current financial year, current quarter. And the blue line indicates instances when the members were on duty, and the gray line indicates instances where the members were off duty. Then attacks on farms and small holdings, we had 9 murders in the current quarter. We looked at 2019, we had 13 for the first quarter, and 2020, we had 9 for the first quarter. That is a reduction of 4 counts of murders when compared to the same period in 2019. Then, unfortunately, there were also 45 robberies at residential premises at the farms, which of the 45, they also resulted in 2 murders, and there were 12 attempted murders, 3 rapes, 14 assault GBH, 3 attempted murders, and 9 theft out of motor vehicle. Then in terms of the rapes, they follow the same trend that we have observed across the other crimes, and the places where the rapes happened, mostly they were happening at the residence of the perpetrator. Then public places, mode of transport, prisons, educational institutions, we had 5 rapes, 1 in the Free State, 2 in KZN, and 1 in the Western Cape. The rest of the places where rapes occurred are shown in that particular slide. Then the trio crimes made up of carjacking, robbery, race, and robbery run residential, they also follow the similar trend, and they have decreased across all the 9 provinces. Then these are the reductions in terms of the trio crimes. In carjacking, we had a reduction of 1,873. Robbery at residential premises, a reduction of 1,208. Robbery at non-residential premises, 1,759. Then property-related, the only crime that has increased within that broad category of property-related crimes was burglary at non-residential premises, and we had already indicated that the highest contributor or the contributory factors were the burglaries that happened at schools and at liquor outlets. Then these are the provinces which were affected and the trend. The Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, and the Western Cape, all where there was increases in the burglary at non-residential premises. And when we zoom in specifically at the burglaries that happened at non-educational institutions, we saw that 651 were at KZN, 607 were at Gauteng, Eastern Cape was 326. Overall, when you look at the broad category of burglary at non-residential premises and look at the contribution of liquor outlets, they contributed 14% to the broad category, and the burglaries at schools contributed 7%. So overall, the 2 categories where there were burglaries at schools and burglaries at liquor outlets contributed 23% of the burglaries at schools contribution to the broad category of burglaries at non-residential premises. Then stock theft is the only graph which is different from all the other graphs, whereby level 3, the two graphs started coming apart. Among the other issues that were highlighted was the active operations that were carried in the Northwest and in Mpumalanga, where they also had joint operations with farmers, etc., leading to the two graphs coming apart at level 4 and at level 3. And that is the long and short of the first inaugural quarter one crime.
Which provinces stole more? Stock theft.
Oh, the provinces that had problems in terms of stock theft that had recorded increases was the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, and the Western Cape. KwaZulu-Natal had 1,679 cases, Eastern Cape had 1,920, Northern Cape 402, and the Western Cape at 285. However, these are the only 4 provinces that have recorded increases in terms of stock theft. Thank you.
I think it's fine.
Thank you very much, General Kukune, for that presentation. Colleagues of the media, you are more than welcome to access this presentation on our website, which is saps.gov.za, and recovering from a crime holiday. But with those words, I would like to open the floor to some questions. As you know, we do have the WhatsApp line as well as the telephone line that will be manned by Takalani as well as Jabulani, but we do have journalists that are in attendance this morning, or this afternoon rather. Let's just start with them possibly. Could I maybe have an indication of hands of questions that we could pose to the Minister, the National Commissioner, as well as the Deputy Minister who are here with us, Govan Whittle from ENCA? Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Govan Whittles from ENCA. Minister, you mentioned in your speech that unfortunately these almost 300,000 South Africans that were arrested and charged, some of them found guilty, would have criminal records, and that the Justice Minister is looking at that issue. What exactly would be expunged for contravening the disaster management regulations? You've mentioned that burglary at sporadic incidents, or if there may have been organized crime behind these incidents. And then I would like to know if you have any information around the extent of the illegal alcohol trade syndicates who have been operating in South Africa for a number of years. Thank you.
All right, there's 3 questions from ENCA. Could we maybe just get one more on the floor? All right, while we do have those 3 questions, maybe let's just get something from WhatsApp. Is there anything on WhatsApp for us, Takalani?
Thanks, Leranzo. We do have questions from WhatsApp. We have a question from Alex Mishley from News 24. And the question is, Minister, can you please comment on the speculation that lockdown levels will be lowered soon and that both the tobacco and booze bans will be lifted? And how does the Minister feel about the possible coronavirus command council, about the possibilities of lifting them? And when looking at the decreasing of crime, what are the major contributing factors that led to the decrease? And we have a question from Yana from Network 24. And the question is, with reference to the people that have been arrested and charged with contraventions of the Disaster Management Act, and the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services looking into the issue to prevent them from getting criminal records, what options are being considered? Are fines an option, and what else? And we also have a question from Sipos Thurman from the SABC, and he said, you keep on pointing at alcohol as a problem in increasing crime incidents. Why don't your strategies in combating crime take the alcohol factor into consideration? because it seems there is a policing of alcohol and less of actual crime. And we have a question from Sisonke from the Cape Agded missing. Some of them, like a 12 years old, Lunamandla Sichonga from Kaelicha, are still missing. After months, they were reported to the police, of which residents claim that the police are not putting much efforts to help finding them.
All right, thank you for that. We'll come back to the course. Is there a call, Ignatius?
Yes, thank you, Leransu. I have Bongan Lulane from EWN.
Hi, yes, thank you. Bonga Julani here from EWN. Minister Cele, I just want to get to a point where you can please clarify. When you say we need to have a frank discussion about alcohol and its contributions to the communities in terms of crime, are you saying you're proposing a policy, or government should look at a policy regarding maybe even banning alcohol, because we're talking here about temporary measures in the lockdown? Number two, going forward, what has the police learned structurally to do better? Because you said this is a rosy picture because of the lockdown, but what will you do better now to police better to make sure these numbers stay like this? Because the country will have to open. So do you have...
Can we hand it over to the Minister of Police? Thank you, General.
Thank you, Kenya. The first question about the criminal record and the Minister of Justice. Really, I'm not the Minister of Justice. I think he's better placed to answer that question. But it has been raised, and I'm sure he's leading that process. And I'll be really talking about something that I don't know what he will do. Surely he'll give a better answer on it. Where the incidents, yes, some were organized, some were spontaneous, because there are people that have been arrested as groups, or and people that have stolen it. Things like your kitchen equipments, like your fridge, your stoves, that would have been stolen, the food itself and all that. So it was a combination of some organized criminality and the spontaneous and individual people that would have been there. No, I'm not able to measure. I hear, Gavin, that there is a huge illicit trade, but I can't measure the huge myself. I hope when we measure it and people are able to, what do they mean by huge, it will help all of us. If you look your news, even yesterday, a huge contingent of cigarette was arrested in Limpopo. That is between 700 and a million. So the 700 million rands. That tells you that, as we gave the report here to say there have been a lot of even contraband and those things that were moved illegally, there have been a very huge kind of success in the arrest. But that does not mean that there were those things that went through the system of illicity and they were sold illegal and all that. But I would not stand here and give the figures how much illicit was put there. Maybe let me answer this question, including the question that was asked by Sipho Stillman on the question of the alcohol, and the same question that you've asked of how huge was this illicit trade. Look, with the illicit, as there are areas, especially in Western Cape, where even under level 4 and 5, people were killed and were killed in the shebeens, which tells you, yes, they were. But the doctors and the health systems did not get locked under the time when there was no alcohol, which means even if there was illicit trade, it could not be equal to the legal trade where everybody, every doctor, the Minister of Health, Professor Karim himself, Professor Perry, Professor Nicole, they all agreed that the suspension of alcohol did open the spaces at the hospital. And I must emphasize the point. The banning and suspension of alcohol has nothing to do with crime. It had all to do with the health system, COVID-19, and giving the space to the victims of COVID-19. But by the way, the crime situation benefited out of that. So it should not be as if alcohol was shut down to deal with the crime situation. It was to deal with the health situation. Frank discussion, indeed. There are 31% people in South Africa that drink. Now, we are number 6 in the world in bunging, not in drinking. Number 6 in the whole world. Why can't we be number 151? Because nobody says alcohol should not be utilized in a way where you go on the table, you eat, you drink water, you take your wine, and all that. South Africans, they take more alcohol in terms of per liter and in terms of size more than almost everybody in the world. That's why they are number 6. So we'll have to really sit down. We can't say ban the alcohol, but we can make better usage of the alcohol. What lessons that have been learned going forward on this one? One thing, as the government at all levels will have to work together on this matter. For instance, the Alcohol Act is per province. Those are provincial acts, is not the national act, which means police, as they work, while they are a national structure, they work on different instructions on different provinces. You go to the shebeen at 4 in the morning, and you find that shebeen is operating legally at 4 a.m. when everybody around is complaining, when everybody will get hurt by 4 o'clock, drunk and all that. So there are things that as South Africans, not as police, will have to agree upon. Standardize the time you open, standardize the time you close, but be strict. You go to some shebeens and you find the 15 years old, the 16-year-olds, and you know that is not allowed in the Republic of South Africa. So those are the things that we'll have to talk about and change the laws. But one other thing that we'll have to do together is a massive education when it comes to the drinking patterns. South Africans will have to be educated, will have educate one another to say how to drink, and so that you don't budge and begin to injure other people, to encroach on the space of other people, to be easy to shoot other people, to be easy to rape, to be easy to do things otherwise you would not have done if you have drank in a measured way, or if you have drank in a way that would not have regarded as bunging. So that's an issue of on the alcohol. Why do I blame it? Yes, I blame it on a certain extent. For instance, there was a reduction of intake in the hospitals. That reduction comes from the less injured people, come from the less GPH, come from the less attempted murder, because those people would have been if there was an extra alcohol on that matter. So blaming it alone, it doesn't help, but we'll have to work going toward forward how do we utilize alcohol ourselves as South Africans. Again, it's not only the alcohol issue that reduced the crime, the high visibility of the enforcement. Remember, almost all police, the soldiers were there. So there was intensity of the visibility. But also for the fact that people were in houses, were not out there, that has contributed. I have said it before, I'm saying it. The communities made a lot of contribution on this one. There were a lot of information, including now, the information to say there is a path next door, there is path then, all that. Even last night in Mpumalanga, we had to send the police where there were people there after tears and all that. So it's a combination of community contributing, the police, the reduction of alcohol, but most of us staying in houses. So it's not just one factor that reduced the crime. Again, the Minister of Justice will work on this thing of the report on the criminal situation. Banning or unbanning, I have no idea of that. I don't ban as a police, we don't unban. We all sit down and we listen. Ours, when the issue is there, is to go and enforce on that one. So I have no idea and I have no opinion on banning and unbanning of alcohol. And I know that the cabinet will be meeting tomorrow, so definitely I'll be very presumptuous and arrogant to come and think what the cabinet will say come tomorrow. I'll wait, and then when the decision is taken, I'll say to the commissioner, this is the direction, commissioner, this is the direction, deputy minister, but unbanning and banning and all that, we've got nothing to do really with that. Missing children is one terrible situation. That's why we do like to emphasize this point of women and children, especially from the side of the South African Police Service. Western Cape is one of our area. Quite several of these kids have been lost and found. Unfortunately, most of them, they are found dead. This issue raised here and the caller raising the matter that police did not do very well, would like really to get extra information on that so that we talk to our police and we see what we can correct on that going forward. Our lessons, I've mentioned them, what we have learned going forward, and we're not going to rest after this. We'll make sure that also take some lessons going forward dealing with the reduction of crime. We did emphasize it on the statement to say, claim no easy victories on this matter. We are claiming no easy victory. The conditions were completely different on the normal situation. And as they change conditions going forward, life will be tougher. We are not really sleeping on our laurels, think that we have reached the station. We have not been there. We'll be working hard to try to improve the situation going forward. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Minister. We will take the last round of questions. Let me just check again if we have a call. Ignatius, do we have a call?
Thank you, Lorenzo. No, we don't have any calls.
All right, let's just check our WhatsApp line. Any WhatsApps?
No, thanks, Lorenzo. We have Evelyn Morris from Caxton Local Media based in Durban. And the question is, how are the impact of people perhaps not reporting crimes occurring within their own homes during lockdown considered in these stats? And we have a question from Yana Max from Network 24. And the question is, the pandemic and lockdown won't last forever. And is the minister foreseeing a rise in crime because of the increasing of poverty and job losses, and what can be done to sustain the lower crime levels we have experienced this past quarter? And we have the last question from my side from Alex Mishley from News 24. The question is, when talking about alcohol and its effects on crime and trauma, isn't there also a concession on the part of law enforcement not properly and strictly enforcing the law, or the issue of corruption and taking bribes? Or is it solely because South Africans commit crime when inebriated? Thanks, Lorenzo.
From the WhatsApp as well as the calls, let me just do a final check on the ground. Is there one more, ENCA?
Thank you, Lorenzo. I have one call from Teto Matlakwa from Eyewitness News.
Sure. Go ahead, Teto.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to ask the Minister Lorenzo about when the South African Police Service actually plans to include a category that specifically deals with hate crimes against homosexual people or the queer community, because we see that it's enough that they're covering the women and children category quite extensively, yet there's this category which we believe and know from evidence on the ground that has been experiencing high levels of crime. Thank you.
Thanks, Teto, for that. Just one more question from ENCA. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's Govan again from ENCA. I'd just like to get some details on the question regarding whether any syndicates were infiltrated or arrested during this period, particularly for the smuggling of illegal cigarettes, and if the police commissioner could just give us some indication on whether or not they've seen an increase in the attempted smuggling across South African borders of illegal cigarettes during this lockdown period. And then, Minister, I don't know if you have the details on how many people have been arrested for illegally selling alcohol, and if you can confirm whether the police have arrested any restaurant owners who have been selling wine in teapots during this time. Are you around? Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, ENCA. Perhaps let's ask the police commissioner to start with the questions that are directed to him, and then we'll ask the minister to wrap up this press conference and answer the remaining questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Lorenzo, I have one caller.
All right, one more call.
Yeah, it's from again EWN.
Hi, thank you for my follow question. I'd like to direct this to the commissioner. Commissioner Kessler, the minister has talked about pumping resources to the police to ensure that you maintain these numbers going forward when the lockdown is lifted. Can you take us through a plan, if you have any, how you plan? Will there more police will be hired? Will there be more informants will be needed? Just a way of making sure that crime does not increase once again when things go back to normal, whatever that is.
Thank you, EWN. Let's take those questions.
Thank you very much for the questions, and with the lead of the minister and the deputy minister. I'm sure there's a two-tier question that I would try to respond to. The earlier one was, what plan do we have in order to sustain the statistics? And the later question, and when we did the assessment in terms of the impact from COVID-19, we drew the conclusion that this has been a result or a reflection of a collective performance by the security forces, the government agencies, as well as civil society together. And therefore, the type of a plan that we needed to move forward with, it's an integrated, community-centered plan, which include all the parties. Firstly, we have also realized that visibility has been the factor here, and it has assisted us throughout. But we managed to achieve visibility through a high-density deployment of the security forces, starting with police, defense, traffic, metros, even the security components. They also supported us. But secondly, we also then realized that enforcing or enhancing visibility was not enough if we only considered the security forces, because in the process they also became infected, and the minister is actually related on the numbers. And for that reason, we thought of augmenting the forces with technology. And as a result, we introduced the safer city concept. With the safer city concept, we resort to technology. And we started running pilots, the 10 pilots in the safer city. The first one being Gauteng. I think the Gauteng pilot is in action as I'm speaking. Now, with the safer city approach, we include CCTV camera coverage, we include drones, and quite a lot of other technology. And this technology is also supported by the introduction of the online policing strategy, which is where we started then maximizing the utilization of online platforms. And those online platforms, they also assist us in a number of issues. The activation plan, which is the capacitation of the 72-hour activation plan. Then realizing that there's an outcry upon investigation and gaps in the criminal justice system, we introduced an integrated strategy or plan between us and the NPA. So that we work together. And this has been more to provide a response on gender-based violence. And with the extended, that is the gender-based violence incident, we also introduced what we call the gender-based activation plan, which is a plan that will help us to provide a prompt response to gender-based violence. This has been complemented by the introduction of the cold case strategy, where we took all cold cases from gender-based violence. But briefly, this is the plan that we are taking forward in the security plan, and as well as the economic development interventions, because we have realized there's pressure for rapid restoration of the economic growth, and therefore economic activities needed to be unlocked. And as a result, we then introduce the policing-nomics in order to align those activities through the security plan. Then the specific questions which were asked, I think there's a question raised on the hate crimes. I want to then indicate that the hate crimes are actually part and parcel of the current scope of responding to crime, but we obviously did not look at a dedicated deliverable approach. So we are taking the comment and as an input, and we will then broaden the focus and make sure that is part of the deliverable description, and we would then provide a response. And then with regard to the public resources, we will continue with the integration of resources at multidisciplinary level. One of the structures that assisted us the most is the NAT joint structure, where all government departments are working together, linked to the facade structure of government. So the integration of resources is taking place within the public sector and outside the public sector, where the private sector is also coming in. I hope the question of the increased deployment has been covered. The only thing I can add there is that over and above technology, we have reviewed the personnel plan of the subs. We are looking now at force multipliers. One of the examples that we have added as force multipliers is through the introduction of the Tourism Reserve Police Service that we're adding by enhancing the reservist capacity, and as well as the Royal Reserve Police Service. We also do that through the enhancement of the reservist capacity. This is a quicker and a cheaper way of multiplying the forces, while we also continue with the 7,000 announcement which was made by the president. But the technology will assist to augment this. The last question I think I need to respond to is the one of syndicates. We have activated the OCTA strategy. Firstly, there's an ongoing analysis within the OCTA which relates to syndicates. There's few takedowns that we have done on syndicates. I think one of them is the one that has been related by the minister on tobacco, because immediately we effect an arrest, we continue with analysis which is based on your modus operandi of the arrested group. And then again, we also do cold case analysis. Then we move from the overt to the covert approach, which is your conventional to unconventional policing through the OCTA process and follow them up. We should also talk to the children, because there's been a question that has been raised with regard to children. And the one of children, again, I just wanted to add that we have enhanced it through the online, that is policing strategy, where we actually introduce an app working together with Facebook and the other parties. So the maximization of your online platforms is now a formal integral part of the policing strategy moving forward. And our focus now is modernization and digitalization. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Almost you answered all questions, especially those were asked by Gavin. He wanted to know how do we infiltrate the gangsters and the syndicates. That is too much information, Gavin. That is too much information. If we've infiltrated them and how, come on. I would have pulled Commissioner by a bunch if he has said, this is what we did, this is what he did. So it's work, it works, Gavin. The impact of people not reporting, I must say, we have been overwhelmed by the reporting rather than the non-reporting. We have been really overwhelmed. And I just hope and that we work hard to maintain that open line with the communities giving us this information on the other side of reporting rather than too many people. They would ask, even when we reach them in the middle of the night with the parties, and say, how did you know that we are here and all that? Well, it's not our job to tell them how we knew. Our job is to tell them that we are here to welcome you, to fetch you where you're supposed to go and all that. So I would be really not very much thankful and not very much onerous to the people of South Africa if we say they didn't work with us when it comes to when it comes to reporting and giving us full information. Other question, indeed, that it came under these conditions. So we are very much aware that this is not the true picture. We are very much aware. But also we cannot undermine the period, as they call it, a crime holiday, where less people were killed. Indeed, less people were killed, less people were injured. But you saw in the presentation that as we go to lower lockdown, we go to the higher in terms of crime commitment. We expect crime to increase, and we have our lessons how we'll deal with those issues of the crime increase. But indeed, we don't expect that there'll be level 5 one day, will be level 4 one day, which means we'll be working under more relaxed conditions than the conditions that we were introduced in this quarterly thing. Yes, we will expect the crime to be not to be on the same level as it was under 4 and 5. Police corruption, we did give the answer here, even on the speech, to say about 160 of them, 63 if I'm not, 163 were arrested under lockdown, doing things that they're not supposed to do. If you collect the exhibit, if you collect the illegal stuff, you suppose they know police what to do. It's not for them to sell it, it's not for them to drink, it's not for them to go out there. But we did deal with them, including the last crew that were arrested last week or early this week at the airport. People selling alcohol, I don't have exact figures, Gavin. The figures we have is that people that broke in schools and broke in the bottle stores, there are 1,186 people that were arrested specifically for those two misdemeanor, the schools and the bottle stores. There are 1,186. But the other people, they are on that big, huge number where people were arrested. Are you happy with the deployment? Yes, the deployment that you come from, we're very much happy, though we know that under normal circumstances, there will be reduction. Soldiers will have to go back to the bases, but we'll have to maximize whatever level we have with other agencies like your metros and others. I hope we'll work together. But up to this point, we're really thankful to everybody that has worked with us to try and achieve the results that we have achieved as we give them today. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Minister. And just to give you clarity on the arrest of the burglaries at bottle stores as well as schools, we have about 649 people that were arrested for breaking into schools, and we have about 537 people that were arrested for breaking into bottle stores. This, of course, is the amount that the Minister mentioned in his speech. But we are wrapping up this press conference. I do believe there is one last question, Minister, and it is on WhatsApp. Dagalani, what is it?
Thank you, Lorenzo. It's a question from Amanda Watson from The Citizen. The question is, Amanda is saying, after subtracting the arrests, warning and convictions, 88,336 cases are outstanding, and what happened to those cases? Thanks.
Okay, and that's the last question.
The outstanding. Cases are outstanding. Cases are outstanding. It means exactly. So some of them will have to be decided by the NPA some of them are in court, which means they're not finalized. The other figure that we gave, which means are the finalized figures. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Minister. With that, we are wrapping up our conversation here, but a special thanks to Major General Sekhukhune for unpacking the numbers for us. And of course, thank you to the Deputy Minister for joining us this afternoon, and to the National Police Commissioner, and of course to you, members of the media. Thank you for always honoring our invite. And with that, stay safe.